Hi guys, Richard here on the Haltech YouTube channel, and today I'm lucky enough to be up here in sunny Northern Sunshine Coast, isn't it?
Beautiful Sunshine Coast,
and
welcome.
I have been picked up in the coolest Uber with Woody.
Well, first thing, I'm going to give it a bit of a spoonie because you got to hear this car, it's amazing. This is Gavin's 1971 Nissan Skyline GTX. It's a GTX, it's not a GTR. Originally Gav kind of came to us with this idea, hey, I've got a cool car. You watched the show, hey, I've got a cool car, what do you want to do with it? And a guy in New Zealand called Nelson Harley Engines, he's actually built the engine. So it's an awesome combo that he's built for us, and we've thrown it into this amazing car. So, and bloody beautiful, man. It goes well. It is. Oh, the driving experience with this car is absolutely awesome. It's, you know, we've got a TR6060, so 6-speed, and you ride through the gears. It's I'll just give it a spurt to kind of explain what it's like. You can see the concentration in my face. This car is all hands on.
Yeah.
It's an absolute animal. But that's the thing, it's a 1970s car with a powerful engine. It's
so fun.
Oh, so fun.
Well mate, this has been awesome driving in this, but I can't wait to get back to the skid factory and see where you do the work and where the magic happens. Yeah, learn more about the engine and everything going on with this car.
Easy man, no worries. Al knows a lot about the car, so I'll pass it over to him and he can explain the ins and outs of and the details of the car.
Awesome. Hello mate.
How you going?
All right. Dude, it is so good to be here in the factory where the skids are made and the lemon squashes are smashed. Thank you so much for having me.
Does it look smaller than you thought? Everyone says it does.
It's about what I was expecting. It's way bigger than my garage, I can tell you that. So how cool is this thing?
It's pretty cool. Let's have a look under the bonnet.
All right.
Well, you can see a little bit through the bonnet, but
So obviously this is a way bigger V8 than the engine that came in this car.
2 litre 6-cylinder in it.
Yep.
So that's obviously factory for them. It was very slow, but it was probably okay back in 1971 when this car was built. But the owner Gav, he wanted something bigger and better, and we eventually settled on this engine, which is a VK56-DE from a Nissan Titan truck.
Is it similar to the engine that the V8 supercars ran?
Very similar to that. I think they brought them back to 5 litre for that because that was the class rule, but this one remains at 5.6 litre.
So obviously way more power than factory and than the chassis was built for. What have you got going on back here that's keeping it on the road and not, you know, just twisting itself in half?
So all the driveline's been upgraded. It's running a TR6060 Tremec 6-speed gearbox that was originally in a VE Commodore or HSV. Mm-hmm. So that they're very strong and also very large, which is, you know, has its own problems. At the back there, we've got the original diff was an R180 Nissan, and it's got an R200 in it now. The drive shafts are all custom made, huge shafts. They've got an outer flange, companion flange, where the wheel goes through. Any Datto guy will know all about those snapping as soon as you put a little bit of power through them. So all that's been replaced. Everything's new. The brakes have been replaced.
What sort of power are you making?
It made 570 horsepower on an engine dyno, right. And I think we got about 450 at the hubs.
Yep.
So it's more than enough for this car. I think we weighed this car out with corner scales, and it was 1,260 kilos.
Yep. So that's a fairly lively power to weight ratio, as I can attest from my drive here.
Yes, indeed.
Huge radiator with twin thermofans. Obviously, you need to keep something like this cool.
Yep.
What else? What sort of fueling and stuff have we got going on here? Fairly standard, or?
I think it's got like 660cc injectors, which is more than enough for it. It does run on just normal 98 fuel because it's actually low compression engine. It's only 9.8 to 1. It's a street engine, as the engine builder Hartley Motorsport in New Zealand, they specialise in these. They built the engine as a street engine, so it's not a race motor like they would normally build for speedway cars, but it comes with ITBs, which are actually 3D printed in that manifold, billet sort of CNC machined ITBs. And the whole lot is controlled by a Haltech Elite 550. And the reason for that is that these engines normally run on a carburetor.
Right.
And they don't, they just have an ignition control system. So it doesn't actually have a cam sensor anymore. All that's been deleted. The cams don't have variable cam timing. It's got like reground or custom cams with obviously a bigger profile. So because we only had one sensor to work with, we couldn't run it sequentially anyway. So we thought, may as well use the 550. It does the job just as well as the rest of them. It just misses out on the sequential control, which in this case doesn't really make any difference.
And if you're using, I'm guessing this is just like a cool cruiser type thing, not a lot of, it's not like a race car that's going to go around the circuit or anything like that.
Yeah, it's not really a circuit racer, but it does get used on just sort of happy lap stuff like that.
Yep.
It sounds absolutely magnificent through those ITBs, as you'd expect. We have actually got a lot of race car orientated stuff in it. It's got a dry sump now.
Yep.
Which was only due to the fact that we were having dramas with the sump that we were trying to fit in it.
Yes.
It's obviously not meant to be in there, so there was a lot of difficulties with certain things, and we got past most of them, but the sump itself was being difficult.
So obviously, do they still use the term shoehorning for putting an engine like this into?
I think that would be a very accurate description for this car.
When you're shoehorning an engine like this in, you've got to come across some difficulties just making it all fit, right?
Yeah, that's correct. We did come across a lot of those. The engine bay is actually quite large, which was great, and we'd already measured it all up, and we knew that the engine in its naked form would fit in there. But you've got things like sump layout. The truck sump obviously didn't work. It was about that deep because it's out of a truck. So we removed that. The steering box, it had a really large steering box, sort of about that height, poking out the side here. So we had to remove that, and we've changed it to a KE70 or A86 rack and pinion setup. Yeah. So that allowed all that to fit. Eventually, we made a custom sump for it, but it just was a bit, it was unhappy, so we ended up with the dry sump setup. So it all fits in there pretty well now.
So using the Elite 550, you're a bit limited with some of the sensors and stuff you can use. I guess you were pretty selective with what you've got going on here, engine protection, things like that. Yeah,
so being a single plug ECU, it's obviously got less pin assignments. So, but that didn't really hold us back too much. We've still got engine protection from fuel pressure and oil pressure, and they're sort of like your top of the list important stuff. And obviously the oil pressure was very important for us, because when we were on the dyno, we were seeing oil pressure loss, we were warned by the engine builder that could happen with that sump layout. So that pretty much saved the day. We could have just sent it out on the road and had problems.
Had some expensive problems.
Having both the data logging capability of it, where we could go back, the tuner could go back and look through it and go, yep, this is definitely a trend we're seeing here. And then in the videos that we did on the dyno, we changed a lot of stuff on the dyno to try and find changes, and all that was able to be logged into the ECU, so we could see, yes, that's doing something, or no, that's not doing anything. And eventually we ended up with the dry sump, but it's, if you don't have that info, you don't know.
Yep. You don't know what you don't know.
That's exactly. Back in 1971, this was actually a luxury personal coupe in Japan, so it's got a lot of beautiful detail work on it, a lot of chrome, looks great. We haven't actually done anything restoration-wise to this car. It's as it was imported 14 years ago by the owner, Gavin. All we've done is really add just some of this GTR spec stuff, so flares front and rear, and the chin spoiler. So the rest of it's actually more or less as he bought it over from Japan all those years ago. If you're an old JDM car nut, you would probably know about the Hakosuka or Hakosuka, if you want to pronounce it correctly, or maybe not. The flares on these are a big part of the styling of the cars. The original GTRs actually didn't have a flare in the front. They only had a rear flare just for more tyre. But the aftermarket versions, they put a flare in the front, which kind of evens out the styling a bit better. And also houses these beautiful wheels. These are actually original Impol Hoshino G5s that have been fully reconditioned or rebuilt basically by Barra Brothers in Sydney. These are the 5-spoke versions. 4-spoke versions are more common, and this actually was a 4-spoke or 4-stud car originally, but we've converted it over to 5-stud to just basically take the load a bit more from the power and the weight. The brakes behind these wheels are hopper stoppers, so that's based down in Melbourne. It's actually an upgrade kit for a KE70 front end that they use in circuit racing. So it's basically just an AU Falcon caliper with a large rotor. So all hidden under 15-inch wheels, which is no mean feat these days, and it actually has quite good braking power.
Sitting in this is almost like taking a trip back in time. It is amazingly original. In fact, you'd almost wouldn't believe that it had been modified. Other than your little Haltech can gauge over here, there's nothing that wasn't actually factory. In fact, this is what a radio used to look like before Spotify was a thing. There you go, kids. Of course, I do have to say a huge thank you to Woody and Al for having me here today, showing me this amazing car. If you need to know any more about it, and you do need to know more about it, please go over to their channel, check out the build. It is fantastic. And that's it for today. My name's Richard. Copy you later.
Thanks for watching, guys. If you like this video, smash that like button. We put out a new video every week, and sometimes even 2. So don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more awesome content.